Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You are tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. All your favorite platforms, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and all the rest, because I need as much platform to splatter more hope and happiness on you. That's what this show is about, with guests and topics that help you feel 88% happy. Why not 100% happy? If you're 100% happy, you're dead. We don't want dead people walking. We want mostly happy most of the time. And today is no exception. I have with me in my studio live this morning, Florence Ann Romano. She's a child care and village advocate. That's a new one. That's a new term. That's great. I like that. As well as an author and philanthropist who has always had a special place in her heart for children. She worked as a child care provider for over 15 years and believes the key to a family's success lies in focusing on what she calls the trifecta: parent, child, and caretaker working in unison towards common family goals. Florence Ann is the co-host of the podcast Finger Painting the Future and YouTube series Windy City Nanny, shedding light on the variety of childcare challenges we see across the country. She's been featured on over 400 national and local media outlets across the country, including ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, and affiliates, and the Jenny McCarthy Show, Sirius XM, and more. Her loyal followers on all kinds of social media are engaged in a village that helps. She served as president and founder of a nonprofit board dedicated to autism awareness, and now serves on the executive board of the Children's Research Fund at Lurie's Children's Hospital as a founding member of Sesame Street Leadership Council. So please welcome to the studio, Florence Ann Romano. Okay, I have a friend. She doesn't have an answering machine. She has a questioning machine. Okay. And when you call her, she says, "Who are you and what do you want?" So,
is that
who are you and what do you want?
Well, I am Florence Ann Romano. I like to think of myself as a child care and village advocate. I was a nanny for over 15 years, have been in the industry for 20. And what I want is really to shine a light on child care in the new millennium, and also how important village is. You know, we hear the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child, but what does that really mean? And I want to go deeper with that and actually talk about what that village is, how to get there, how to build it, but also the fact that everybody needs a village, not just people with children. So that's who I am and what I'm about.
Beautiful. And where are you hailing from?
Chicago,
Illinois.
Yes.
Great. It's pizza and popcorn.
Yeah, there you go. Garrett's. Everyone loves Garrett's. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So, and since it is my birthday that we're doing this, maybe I'll see something in the mail. Just kidding. Yeah, just kidding.
Exactly. I know. I should get on that. Oh my gosh.
So as I ask most of my guests, tell me, did you know you were going to be doing what you're doing and using that as a springboard to how you came into this whole arena of what you're doing as an expert?
It's a good question, because I don't know if I ever intended to have this platform. I think it was a calling, I suppose, as I got older in life, as I retired from being a nanny and I started thinking about what did I learn and what am I seeing in society? And the truth is, over 64% of families in America today have a nanny. And when I saw that statistic, I was like, man, that's not a trend. That's really part of our culture now. And so I started thinking, we need to pay attention to who is helping us raise our children. And then years later, the pandemic hit, and we all figured out and realized and felt, I think for the first time, what it was to lose your village. And we saw that on a global level. And to me, that was very profound, because there's not many things in this world that, bond us, but that did. And everyone knew what it was like to lose the people they loved or counted on, whether, I'm not talking about necessarily losing them, to death, but losing them in terms of a part of their life in an everyday capacity or weekly or whatever it might be, and support. And so I don't think I knew I would do this, but I think that the circumstances that have transpired in the world have allowed me to.
Great. So do you have kids?
I do not have kids yet. No.
Okay. But you look, so talk to me about that transition from before the I call it hashtag BC19, the time before COVID.
Yeah.
So before COVID, the average family, I'm surprised at the number, 64%. So I'm guessing that the majority of those who had nannies were, mom and dad or partners are working full time.
Right.
And so they had someone to help with the child care.
Right.
And that's the population you're talking about. And okay, go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, I was just going to mention that I think what we saw happen during the pandemic was a lot of people left the workforce, especially women. And when you lose those women, are you able to get them back in the workforce now? And the truth is, we're not seeing that happen, and we can't afford to lose these women. But they had to leave because someone had to watch the children. But again, before COVID, we were seeing that people knew that they needed help. But this was a very sensitive subject for a lot of people. Because
let's put that moose on the table right now.
Let's do that.
That's where I was kind of going, but I didn't know if we could go that way.
Let's go there. Let's totally go there.
This is it's my Canadian version of the elephant in the room. So we're going to talk about the moose on the table. All right. So there is a camp that says working moms is an escape, because you don't want to have to do all the diapers and the dirty stuff that is part of child rearing. And so you hand that off to someone and you pay them money to do it. I'm going like way extreme here, but that is one of the, the working moms versus the non-working moms. So the non-working moms are judgmental and judging working moms and saying, how dare you leave your children with a stranger, and you should be at home, you should be the ones raising. And then you have working moms saying, I am more than just a mom. I also get a sense of meaning from my work, and you have no right to judge me for that. And I can be a good mom with quality of time versus quantity of time.
Absolutely.
So back off. So there's your two camps. Have I missed anybody?
No, I think those are absolutely the two camps. And what's hard is you want to think that we're all just going to support each other, that we're all just going to, whatever works for your family, what are the values of your family, that you're going to support that. But I see a lot of mudslinging, as I like to say it, between moms or just parents in general, because there's a lot of judgment there. But the truth is, when I was a nanny, I remember one of the last little girls I nannied for, the mom handed me her little newborn baby girl, and I could see the tears in her eyes, but also this sparkle, because she got to go out and care for her family, put food on the table, and she also got to fulfill something within herself. And I think oftentimes we hear parents, especially mothers, talk about how they lose themselves to being a parent. They forget who their identity is. They forget who they are, the things that make them happy. And I am not here to judge whether or not you have a nanny or not. I have always said, though, that I believe that even if you have a nanny or a babysitter or anyone helping you, that you still have to be an active part of that child's life. You still have to be an active parent, that it is a unified front between the nanny and the parents or whomever it is in that village, that you're all kind of standing together. Now, the guilt part of it, I always say, if you can think of the nanny or whomever it is as a godparent or an aunt or an uncle or someone like that who's in the child's life to show them love, to be an example, whatever it is, that's the best gift you could give that child, because you can't give them enough love. Exposing them to different cultures, different people, different ways of thinking, all of that is so important. So if you can step back from competing with the nanny or the people in the village, thinking that you're not doing enough or you're not enough or you should be doing it all yourself, then you open up this immense capacity within yourself to deliver this huge gift to your child. And that is the gift of an inordinate amount of love.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Good point. I'm kind of the balanced camp. I coach, and when they come to me with that question, I feel torn. It is certainly the first 6 years, if you can swing it and stay, your job and career, we don't talk about the hits and the good news. The hashtag COVID silver lining is
right.
You can do anything now. The workplace has no preconceived ideas about anything, whether you miss work or not. And then, as you said, I absolutely agree that wherever you land, the worst thing is to be guilty or unhappy with your choice. My analogy is you've got a bunch of doors in front of you. The worst thing you can do is go through one door and then turn around and regret and say, what if I had gone to the other doors? Because there's never a perfect door. There's certain doors that have blades coming out. You don't want to walk into that one. Right. But there's usually 2 or 3 pretty good doors that have benefits and consequences. And if you're wondering who's in my studio today, this beautiful woman here, her name is Florence Ann Romano. She's here talking to us. She has a book out, and it's about village and care and children. We'll be right back with more when we come back to Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind.
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And we're back. You're tuned into Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and everywhere streaming, because I want you to face your own reality show and see how you can be happy 88% of the time. And my guest today is Florence Ann Romano. Your book talks about, tell me who's your book for and why you wrote it, and maybe some key takeaways.
I look at that phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. And I was like, well, let's shorten that. It takes a village. It takes a village to do a lot of things. For all of us, even those who don't have children, it takes a village. So I wanted to write a book that actually gave directions to the village and showed you how to build one. And also identified for you who you are in other people's villages. And if you're feeling isolated, like you don't belong to one, how can you change that for yourself? And who do you want to be in other people's villages? And so I started thinking, I think I'd like to create 6 villagers that you can identify with. And that's exactly what I did in the book. There are 6 villagers that I break down and define. And the goal is that you're going to identify with these 6 villagers in some way, shape, or form. And that's going to help you figure out how to build your village and who you are in other people's villages. And at the end of each chapter, there's also gut checks and action steps for you. The gut checks for how you feel after reading that chapter, and then what you can actually take from the chapter and then implement that day.
Perfect. Give me an example of something you would gut check about yourself or your village.
One of my friends called me the other day And I guess by the other day, I mean this was a long time ago. I guess one day, I always say the other day. And she said to me, I need you to be the emergency contact for my kids at the daycare. And I said, okay, yeah, no problem. I'd love to do it. They're like, I need your license. I need this and that. And so I did. And she said to me, you were the only option in my mind because you always answer your phone. And I know the kids would be safe with you. And I started laughing. I said, well, I'm honored. Then I started thinking about that. I, in her mind, was the emergency contact. I wonder what other people do in terms of emergency contacts. Who do they choose and why do they choose them? And that started me thinking about the village in a bigger way, because emergency contacts are part of that village, or the people that, when someone passes away, organizes a meal train for, the family in need. That's a village. Or the friend that comes over when she knows her friend is just drowning in the ick of parenthood and says, here's a bottle of wine and we're just going to hang out. That's your village. So there's a lot of different examples I could give about who these people in the village are and how they support you. But the point is, it shouldn't be one person doing everything. And you shouldn't be the one person doing everything in someone else's village. And it's not about the quantity. It's about the quality of people that you're bringing into your village, that you're creating, because they're serving a purpose. They are in some way, shape, or form supporting you, fulfilling you, helping you, whatever it is. And so that's the goal of the book, is to be able to identify with whatever villager you might be, and also help you figure out, if you are feeling lost, how to gain some control in that way and find your village.
Got it. Now, for people who, let's say, have no family, they live, away from their birth family. They don't. The only village they think they have is who they can hire. Right. Is there ever? I mean, you hear those reality show horror stories, or the cameras, behind the scene, and the people. You really don't know people. Right. So how can you be sure when you're hiring someone that they are really going to be looking after your kids?
The vetting process is very important. And I always say to families that you have to know thyself first. You have to know what your values are as a family before you can bring someone else into the fold to be an extension of that, because that's what they are, an extension of the values of your family. Maybe education is important to you. Maybe religion is, maybe politics. I don't know, whatever it might be, discipline. But you have to know what you're looking for in that person. And I guess the $1 million question is, can you trust another person? I absolutely believe you can trust another person to take care of your children, but you have to be an active part of the vetting process. You're not just going to bring someone in off the street tomorrow and take care of your kids. You need to make sure that they're shadowing you, you're observing them in the house with your children, you're spending time onboarding them in that way, you're doing the background checks, all of that. I mean, I know parents get overwhelmed because they want this done tomorrow, and finding childcare can be very difficult. But the sooner you can start that process, the better, because you're going to have more peace of mind. And that's the end goal, is that you're going to have the peace of mind to leave your house, to go and do whatever you have to do, whether it's work or play or anything. But you need to have that peace of mind in order for this to be a successful relationship. So you have to be an active part of figuring out if this person is the right fit.
Mm-hmm. So what would be, I like the mirroring part, being there, any other practical things, because, my suspicious mind goes to even when you're dating, you think you know someone, right, and then, 3 months later, they're a different person, because now you're getting the balance side of the not so great. So how can you stack the deck towards not making choices that are probably not the best for your kids?
I always say that children have the best instincts. Now, if your children are able to communicate or are of the age, I think you need to ask them how they feel about the person. They are uncensored in the worst of times, we always know. But in this case, I think you should take what your kids say to heart. they're going to get a good feeling about them. And I can't guarantee, no one can, that you're going to hire the right person, that there's not going to be any problems. It could be a personality issue a few months down the line. You're like, it just doesn't jive. But I wouldn't have known that unless I actually gave them a trial period in my home. The best way for you to ensure that you're setting yourself up for success is, again, going back to this idea of knowing who you are as a family and what you need that person to do as an extension of you. You will be much better off if you are able to approach it from that point, because if you don't know what you need or what you want, or how you want this person to be involved in your children's life, what sort of role model you want them to be, what sort of access they'll have, what sort of influence they'll have, then you're really going to have a hard time, because there are no clear boundaries and there are no clear expectations. So transparency is key there.
Right. And you also say in your notes the communication is key, and we're going to come back and talk about that. Today I have Florence Ann Romano in my studio. We're talking about village, childcare, parent care, self-care. Come right back to Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome back. You're tuned to Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.05, and streaming everywhere. And this is a show about hope and happiness and helpful tips always. And today's advice that I don't always use, but that I'm sure you're all going to use when it comes to kids and village and care and self-care. Please welcome back to my studio, Florence Ann Romano, who's here from Chicago, Illinois. Not too windy today, and she's talking about her new book that is called...
We're working on it. The title right now. So I wish I could tell you, but we'll see. We'll see in the next few months.
Beautiful. So this is in process.
Yes.
Okay.
In process.
All right. So we're building up the anticipation.
Yes.
So I'm going to go back to something you said about having your kids, they know, kind of to have that sense of if a person is good or not so good. Now, again, I'm going to go off on my moose on the table. And one of the things that I've seen, not all, but there seems to be a plethora of parents who grew up on one end of the limits spectrum, where, be seen and not heard. I'll give you something to cry about. You can't do this and you can't do that. And spanking's not a bad thing because it sets some limits and gives the kid a guideline. That's how they grew up. The baby boomer side, they got boomed.
Right.
And then the other extreme, right, where we saw, I'm not going to ever do that to my child, and therefore anything goes. I'm going to let you do anything you want. You follow your inner child and you do whatever, and you can do whatever, and you can say whatever, which is the other extreme. And then a nanny comes in who has maybe a balanced view of setting limits and saying, no, actually, you do have to go to bed right now. You cannot stay and play your games until 1 a.m, and you cannot eat whatever you want, and you cannot talk like that to your sibling or me. That's disrespectful. And so the kid goes to the mom. I don't like her. Now, I wouldn't trust that kid's gut, to be honest, because they are coming from a very different place. What do you do about that?
Well, I think there's a difference between the first impression of someone that you're getting and actually implementing some sort of boundaries or discipline. So in that case, yes, I would not be saying we're going to fire the nanny because the nanny is making them do things they don't want to do or having, certain expectations. Or usually the rules that are implemented, I have to say, Dr. Marissa, are from the parents. The parents are the ones making the rules, and the nanny is supposed to be employing that. So I feel like we have to remember that they are an extension of what the family needs. And if you want that nanny to really truly be an extension of you, then those kids are going to have to look at that nanny with some authority. But I have been in this scenario as a nanny where, I didn't want to be mean, or I didn't want to, be, telling them no all the time. And so of course I was a little bit more lenient probably than the parents were, but I also understood my role was to fulfill what the parents needed. So yeah, I did have to put my foot down sometimes. Yeah, those kids weren't happy with me all the time. And I'm sure they wanted me to go home early, never come back, or whatever it was, because they were mad at me that day. But I think what I'd like to go back to is the idea of the gut of your child. That first instinct after they meet that person, if they're in the home for a trial period for an afternoon, asking them what they thought of the nanny. I always go back to Mary Poppins, where you watch, the kids write like what they want in a nanny. The father rips it up, and then Mary Poppins comes and she's holding the piece of paper that, they wrote all the things they wanted. And Mary Poppins is the quintessential nanny. Everyone's like, oh, Mary Poppins, Mary Poppins. I'm like, Mary Poppins was kind of mean. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't like that. But the point is that the nanny is supposed to be there to help the entire family. It's supposed to make the entire family work. And it doesn't mean that everything is fun and hearts and flowers all the time. So you have to be able to differentiate a child's bad day versus dangerous behavior.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I actually had the other nanny, Fran Drescher, on my show a couple of times.
Yes, I love her. Oh my gosh.
It's funny. Yeah, she's doing great things educating people about how to prevent cancer. I didn't know if I was just getting a little plug for her on Cancer Schmancer. So, okay, here's another moose on the table. This happens especially here in California. I don't know about Chicago. So we have nannies who are hired. Largely, they're more affordable than a nanny agency, so to speak.
Right.
They have the bonus of children learning a second language, which in California is Spanish for the majority of the population I'm talking about. And there's almost this double standard that I hear about, and I don't know if it's the media trying to create waves in the differences and discrimination and prejudice. But there's this, I remember seeing something where someone hired a nanny who was Latina, and then put the rule down that she was not allowed to teach the children any Spanish at all.
Okay.
Which was kind of shocking.
Yeah.
But the dilemma or the controversy around the upside, downside, the expectations, I kind of just threw that out. You're the expert in this. What is your kind of response?
Well, I believe diversity is a big part of the conversation, not just now, but probably always should have been. I know that I wish I spoke another language. Oh my gosh, if I could have been that nanny teaching kids another language, I would have loved it. And I wasn't a nanny for everyone because I didn't come to the table able to speak another language. So I wasn't the right person for each family. But I would say that you're going to find this no matter where you go, whatever state it is, whatever country, there's going to be prejudice. There's going to be opinions. And that's why it's so important in the interview process from the nanny side and the parent side that you're aligned. Everyone, I talk a lot about it, and people talk a lot about the parents needing to know who they are. But the nanny needs to know who they are too. The nanny needs to know who they want to work for, who they don't want to work for, what type of environment they want to be in, what they don't. So really, it needs to be a mutually agreed upon contract if you're going to be working together, because you have to be aligned. But the story that you're citing, to me, is not the first time I've heard something like that. And I certainly know it's not going to be the last. But we're, again, doing a disservice to our children if we're not exposing them to things outside of their culture or new things or educating them. I'm not sitting here telling a family what your values should be. I'm not going to tell you, that you need to hire a nanny that's going to have the same religion or politics as you. But it is a good idea, usually, to have an open mind to things. And a second language or a third language or whatever it is, I feel like I don't really see the harm in that. But I guess someone else may feel that that's something they don't want to be taught.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think it's all bubbling to the surface now. All of these hidden, not so hidden, Capitol Hill, everything's that George Floyd, that's brought this really, at least to a point that we can openly put the moose on the table, talk about it and address it, so that it is not one of those, festering infections that are not healing. All right, so see if I've got this right. BC-19, before COVID, the working mom versus stay-at-home mom, being good with wherever you are. 64% are employing nannies to help with childcare. I get all the, the pre-research and making sure in that hiring process is good. And then afterwards, being purposeful around your village, purposeful around having multiple people have different roles in building your family or taking care of your kids. Right. Then we have the pandemic.
Yeah.
So the pandemic says, can I trust that my childcare is not going to make my child sick?
Right.
Am I comfortable that whatever I'm believing, maybe I don't want to vaccinate, or I don't want to wear a mask, which I don't understand why you wouldn't. But anyways, and your childcare worker goes, I can't come anymore because there's no way I'm going to subject my own family to that. So we've got that dynamic going. We've got there's one picture, I should have gotten it to show, where the work at home mom now has duct tape to the ground their kids so that they can do theirs. Do you remember that one? It's such a funny picture. So the reality of now, no choice, have to homeschool, no choice, education on the computer, no choice, my own job on the computer, quarantining, stay at home, so you can't even have the childcare worker come. Right. And then best case scenario, I shouldn't have said that. That sounded judgmental. But one fallout of that is I have seen parents who've said, you know what? I really, after the initial stress of having to adjust, I love, and my kids totally responded fabulously to having mom and dad more available. And after that initial adjustment, I actually have fun with my kids, and they're much more responsible about being part of the family, and everybody has reached kind of a new set point. And I don't know if I want to go back to what I was doing. I don't know if I want to give my kids to someone to raise and all of that. So that's one of the scenarios that I have heard about, watched, and seen. Speak to that.
I always say that we have to learn something from everything we go through, right? And the pandemic was awful. It still continues to be very precarious. And we're all nervous all the time about what's going to happen. And we all know what it feels like to have been locked down the way we were. You in California, my gosh, it was forever for you guys. But what I think we learned and what I see a lot of parents say today is now the separation anxiety is coming. Because kids are going back to school, parents are going back to the actual workplace, and now they're like, well, wait a second. I got real used to this. I got used to seeing my kids wake up in the morning and putting them to sleep at night and having family dinners and, being involved in my child's education. These are the positive things that came from the pandemic, that you did get more time with your family. You did get more time with your kids. You did see. And even though no one wants to talk about it because it's like still such an open wound, having to homeschool your kids, they did get a very, very interesting view into their child's life. And so I think we're seeing anxiety from both the parent side and the children's side. Mommy, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave you. And the parent, gosh, I don't really want to leave my kids. I don't want to go back to what it used to be like where I didn't get to see them wake up or, see them when I came home. So I think that one thing that's going to change, I think, going forward in the workforce, in the workplace, is going to be balance, because now we know, unfortunately, too much. We know how to work from home. We know how to make it work. So I think employers are going to have a harder time now making the case for why they can't allow parents to have more flexibility. And we also saw what happened when you take your kids out of school and when you take them out of daycare. There was no way around it at the time, but parents depended on that childcare, and they will always depend on childcare. So whether it's a nanny in your home or they're going to school or they're going to daycare, we're going to have to do something about childcare in this country, because what we have doesn't work. And it's not working for our parents. And maybe it's the pandemic that's going to actually change that for us going forward, because everyone knows what it feels like.
Yeah. And maybe it's because this is your field, but I don't see it necessarily as a bad thing. So I don't see it as a, we're going to have to I think we have figured it out. I think that there is absolutely benefit for the family system to not be giving out, abdicating your time to someone else. So in that sense, I think it's a great thing. And I get that, yes, there's definitely going to be a shift in how we see childcare, and maybe you are a little more appreciative, certainly at the beginning.
You're definitely appreciative of teachers, aren't you?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. But we are seeing absolutely the employers we've had a employee shortage that we haven't seen the likes of since the 90s.
I know.
So that is, and so many people are saying, no, I do not want to go back 100% of the time. And I think that's a good thing. I really think that there's no downside to that. For me, watching people say, I don't want to spend 2 hours commuting anymore because that's my life and my time that I don't get back, I think that's a beautiful thing. So that's my opinion.
I agree definitely that I think balance is important. And I think we all could use a reset. And I think the pandemic did that. It put a lot of things in perspective for people, and it continues to. And the world will never be the same. The workplace will never be the same because of it. And like you said, maybe that's a good thing. Time will tell. Time will tell. Yeah. But putting family first is always going to be paramount. And if that's what's going to change because of that, because of the pandemic, then I think, like I said, you don't want to do something in vain, right? You don't want to think you didn't learn anything through something as trying as that. Yeah. So,
absolutely,
there's a seismic shift that happened in the universe in that way. And so I think we have to respond and we have to be better. And I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah. I say often that it's not what's happening to you. It's what's happening for you.
Yeah.
So totally. What has happened for you in this whole circumstance? so that you can learn, grow, and expand. So what would you say the biggest myths are, or BS belief systems that people have around childcare that are inaccurate?
The number one question I get all the time, and this is going to sound funny to say, but I'm going to say it, is you can't hire an attractive nanny. People always think that is the secret to why marriages fall apart. And, you hear it splashed on every magazine, and Jude Law cheated with his nanny and all of that stuff. And you know what? In small town Iowa, you're not getting this problem. Okay. We're dealing with the celebrity factor here. But this idea that you can't hire someone attractive, and I'll tell you a very quick story about it. I was nannying for one of my nanny families, and I went. My employer had her friends over, and I went into the family room to get the baby, and I was like, "Oh, hi everyone," da da da, and I left with the baby. And now this is not a compliment to myself at all. I was very flattered by it, but it's just a funny story. I heard one of her friends say, "My gosh, that's your nanny. You let that nanny around your husband." And the woman said to her friend, and I laughed so hard, and she goes, "Oh, please, she wants nothing to do with him." And so it was just a funny story. Now, I don't think at all that I would be considered a hot nanny, but it is definitely, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Whatever people think, they have an idea in their mind of what type of person you would want around your husband or your family or whatever it is. So that is one of the biggest myths, I would say, is that if you can't hire someone attractive to be your nanny because it's going to cause a problem in your marriage. The caveat I will say to that is, if your spouse or partner says to you, "I am not comfortable having someone attractive in the home like that," don't be mad at your spouse for saying that. Be happy they were honest with you about it. And move on to the next person. You can find someone, who's less attractive to be your nanny and be totally qualified. But that is one of it's a very strange thing to say, but I know so many people think about it, about whether or not that nanny can be attractive. And also there are male nannies. And in case anyone's not, wondering about that, there are nannies.
What percent is male nannies?
It's still not very high. I would say it probably accounts for like 20%, probably.
That's high though. 20% sounds high.
It's higher than it used to be, certainly.
Yeah, interesting. So along those lines, is it common to have a mom develop some feelings of jealousy because now they watch their kids, light up when they see, if it's a good nanny, right? Light up when they see, and if they fall, instead of running to mom, they run to the nanny. It's not the kid's fault. The nanny's there. The nanny's there most of the time to take care of their boo-boos. And so but it's one of those, I don't know, that would be there's little jealousy. Bit uncomfortable. Yeah.
There's jealousy, there's guilt, all of that is included. And I'll tell you, one of my employers, her little girl accidentally called me mom in front of her. And my heart sunk because I didn't want the mom to feel bad. And I looked at the mom and I said, as soon as I leave, she's coming right to you, honey. It's not, don't read into it. And she looked at me, and I give her so much credit. She looked at me and said, "It doesn't bother me at all. Knowing that she is loved is all I care about." And that she loved me. And so I give that mom a lot of credit because I know her heart sunk when she heard it. But she knew that the only reason that happened is because her daughter and I had a bond. And that's what she wanted. She wanted her daughter to feel comfortable with me, to feel secure to me, to feel safe. So I can't take away your feelings from you and say, don't feel guilty, don't feel jealous, don't feel that. But remember, if you can look at that person in the child's life as a godparent or an aunt or an uncle, someone else in their life to love them, then you won't feel so competitive.
Good answer. Because that is really, it is one of the realities where it's a consequence of that choice. So then I would add to that and say, again, look at the by having that kind of relationship, it allows you to do the things that you really want to do to fulfill the other side of you.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I was lucky. I have 2 beautiful girls, and I got to raise them. I'm a single mom, and my husband, for a while there was a really good dad, and it was almost a benefit for I remember getting together with girlfriends, and they're like, "You're so lucky because I had no qualms when they were with him, and then I could do my full on what I needed to do, and then I scheduled to be full on with them when it was they came to me." So nothing is perfect.
Nope, never.
Win-win is. It's never 100% win-win. It's 88%, I call it. And so it's really looking at the benefits and focusing there, right, instead of the consequences.
Right. 100%.
For sure. So we're coming to the end here. I always ask my guests, the last question is, to who or what are you most grateful for? To who or what are you most grateful for?
I'd say right now it's health. I think I'm grateful for health. I think I watched a lot of people in my family suffer through COVID, and I don't think I realized how important health was until it became so scary. And so I think right now I'm grateful for every day that I'm healthy, grateful for every day my family and friends are too, as I see new babies being born, that they're healthy and all of that. So health right now, I think is where I'm most grateful, but of course I'm always grateful for my family. That's neck and neck, but health for sure.
Great. And how do people find the book that has not a title yet?
So go to Instagram. I'm all over Instagram. I answer every DM that I get, florenceann.romano, or you can go to my website too, florenceann.romano. And I have lots of resources in terms of blogs and all sorts of things to help you through kind of these trying times. But I'm here for you. If you don't have a village, I want to be your village. If you have a village and you need someone else, I want to be that too. So think of me that way, as your virtual village. And I really do mean it. I answer every DM I get. So please don't hesitate.
Oh, that's so sweet. Italiano?
Yes. I am from Naples and Calabria. Well, my family was from Naples and Calabria.
That's great. Yeah, I went to college in Canada in a town, Hamilton, that was like 90% Italian.
Oh my gosh,
so
how fabulous.
I just recognized the last name. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Doc, and happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming on the show. You have been listening to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show. Hope you enjoyed. Be sure to go and check out Florence Ann Romano as she helps us with coping and a little more care in the village. That's it for today's show. Hope you come back. Remember, it's all about balance. Peace in, peace out, world peace through inner peace. This is Dr. Marissa reporting live, reminding you always to have the best day ever.
Well, she has been dubbed the Asian Oprah, and she just wants all of us to be happy.
Dr. Marissa, aka the Asian Oprah, says the most important thing you can choose is choosing to be happy.
You are tuned into my weekly talk radio TV show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa.
That's the idea for Dr. Marissa Pay's new book called 8 Ways to Be Happy.
Many of us say, I am my own worst critic. Nobody's harder on me than I am. And my response to that is, stop it! Why are you doing that to yourself? You have to be your biggest fan, because if you can't at the end of the day say, I did a good job, who is? We don't have to constantly be angry at the things that are wrong. Why don't we choose to be happy about things that are right? We have the choice. That's our muscle. And life is so amazing if we can see it.